Hello everyone and welcome to the new episode of the Darktable. In this episode I have prepared a few examples, few photos, and I would like to demonstrate how to use a diffuse and sharpen module in Darktable. So let's get started. Before we start with editing of photos, I have prepared one graphic here to be able to demonstrate the functionality of this module. And I don't want to go too deep in the math behind that. If you want to know that, you should read the official documentation about that or watch another videos which are much better for this kind of background information. And I will put all the links in the description. And now I will only demonstrate how to use these sliders and what are they doing, so that you have some idea how can you use them for improvement of your photo. Okay, now we are at the 100% view and we are ready to start our diffusion sharpen module and start to move sliders to see what effect are we getting there. And the main sliders for our diffusion or sharpening are those four sliders here under diffusion speed. If we move some of the slider to the right, we are diffusing the photo, or in opposite direction we are adding contrast or sharpening. So let's get started with the first one, first order speed, to see what's going on. So let's start with the first slider and see what is going on. I'm moving to the right and we almost see no difference, a little bit excuse me, a little bit of diffusion. We can enhance that effect with iterations, so that algorithm will be repeated a few times, depends on how many iterations we choose. And now we can see a little bit better than effect. And as you can recognize, I will bring it back and put it once more, excuse me. We are diffusing that edge, but we are maintaining the sharpness of the edge. We have that diffusion around. Okay, let's see what happens with the next one. The effect is quite similar. I don't see any difference here. And a third one. And now we are blurring the edges, as you can see. Okay, let's try the last one. Also quite similar. So, as you can see, those first two sliders are practically adding the haziness around the edge, and the second or third or fourth slider, we are blurring that edge. Okay, let's see what happens when we add a little bit of radius span here. Okay, let's start with the first order speed again and add a little bit of radius. Let's see something like that. And now you can see we are spreading our diffusion. That means, let's go back to the, I think that was 8. We have here most of diffusion is in this area, and when we are adding a radius, we have the higher range of diffusion, as you can see. Okay, let's leave it there and try the next one. I think we don't see any difference here. Third one. Okay. Now we are diffusing the edge, but it's also wider, and we can recognize the edge again, and the same will be with the last one. So practically radius span help us to spread the diffusion. Okay, let's see what is going on with the central radius. Okay, starting again with first order speed. Our radius span is 85 pixels, and now we will increase central radius and see what is going on. And now you can see our diffusion is not starting directly on the edge, but a bit later. So if I can paint that, let's say with central radius at 0 pixels, we have diffusion that goes like that. And now when you're adding radius, diffusion goes something like that. With central radius, we are practically widening our edge, so that the diffusion doesn't start in the middle at 0, but later. You see? That is the point of the central radius. Okay, let's leave it there and see, for example, now this is a nice example. You can see that practically we have diffusion like that when we use a third order speed. Okay, what is the point of the central radius? What is good for? So let's diffuse it with first order speed quite high, and also let's use the radius span for that and go back to see what is going on. Now I have that haziness, and now if I add the central radius, you see how I maintain my edges. So if I want to have something like haziness on the photo, or add some kind of fog, I'm able to, if I combine those central radius with the radius span together, I can again have nice haziness there without losing the details in the edges. So the main function for my case is to maintain that edge if you are diffusing. Okay, now let's see what is going on if we are using diffusion directionality. What is happening there? So we will add a little bit more iterations here to be able to see it better, the diffusion. And for every order speed we have his own order anisotropy. So look what is happening if I move that slider to the right. No, we don't have any diffusion here, or I will say less diffusion there in these areas. And what that means is following. We're going back. The diffusion is going normally in every direction equally, if we have that at 0, something like that. Now if we move it to the right, the diffusion follows isophotes. And isophotes are our edges practically. These are isophotes. So we have the situation that diffusion is higher in that direction and less in direction of the gradients. You can see that here. We have that diffusion. Practically we have that horizontally and vertically is diffusion higher, less than diagonal, as you can see. And opposite. Now we have this situation. We have more diffusion in direction of gradients than isophos. That is the function of this diffusion directionality, and why that could be good. For example, if I have a window and I want to diffuse everything inside, but don't want to have that glowing of the edges, I can go in this direction, and most of diffusion will go horizontally and vertically, and not everywhere in every direction. So I will keep my window frame clean, for example. I don't have so much examples in my own usage, but sometimes it can be quite helpful. Okay, I think that's everything you need to know about this directionality. Let's see now what is going on when we go to the another direction, to the left, when we try to add some contrast or sharpening. Okay, let's start with the first order speed again. We're going now to the left. I will add a few iterations so that we can recognize what is going on a bit better. And now we have that black lines on the edges. Let's see what's going on if I move the second one and third one. And now you can see with third one we are sharpening practically the edges. If I don't go too far, we have sharpen our edges, and that will be the similar on the last one, as you can see. So practically with the first two, we are adding a more local contrast. We're not sharpening the edges so much. And with second two, we're sharpening it more. So let's see if I move the first one and add a radius pan. And now I have even more of local contrast here. But I have that black blotch here, but I don't want. And now I can use to counter that. I can use edge management options, edge sensitivity, and go up to some extent, so that we don't have that black bleeding there. And I can also use edge threshold to find that a little bit better. And now we have a little bit of the local contrast, but it doesn't makes any artifacts or quite less of artifacts. Let's go higher, and we can now combine, for example, first order speed, go a bit more to the left, and maybe third. Well, let's see. And now we can sharpen and add some local contrast there, as you can see. And you can play with those two sliders to make it much more fine if you want, so that you have so that you don't have that artifacts on the edges. And that's practically how are you adding local contrast or sharpening, dependence on the image. With center radius, we are protecting the edges a little bit more. But what is interesting, if I go with radius span quite high, and also with center radius, I will get practically quite nice local contrast almost without any artifacts. That is quite powerful function of diffuse and sharpen, this possibility to combine those order speeds and radii to get a quite nice effect. It's always depending on what kind of the photo you have. And I think for demonstration purposes, it's enough with this graphic. Let's try that diffuse and sharpen module now by editing real photos. So this is our first photo, and we will use, for this photo, we will use diffuse and sharpen for sharpening. And I will first improve that photo a little bit. Add denoising, maybe lens correction. Go with exposure quite high to see the details a little bit better. And I think I will use also Filmic to remove that contrast a little bit. Maybe add a compression so they have enough room to play. Then I will use color balance RGB and improve the colors and also the contrasts there. Maybe even more by using power function and highlights gain so we have nice contrast. And maybe color calibration, new instance for darkening of the blue sky. Okay, let's say something like that. I think I could have a little bit more saturation in this photo. Let me see. Okay, let's leave it at that. And as you can see, already with color balance RGB, you can improve your photo quite a lot. But now we need to improve our details here. So we will use diffuse and sharpen module for that. And I would like to add a little bit of local contrast. So I will start with diffusion speed first. Add some iteration to see what is going on. And now we have that hallowing here. We don't want that. So we'll use edge sensitivity to cope that a little bit. Maybe, let me see, I can also use a little bit sharpening. And now I have sharpened this photo, but I need to be careful not to have bending, for example, here in the sky, and also inducing noise there. So I can use the fourth order speed to cope that, go back a little bit. I don't need to have too much sharpness here, only a little bit of local contrast. Let's improve it even better. So let's see how it looks like. And now I can also use sharpness function to enhance that even more. Let me see. I'm always looking at the edges. Don't want to lose, don't want to induce any hallowing there. So something like that maybe. It's always the game of fine details. Add some radius. Let's see how it looks like. Maybe we'll go 1 here. Yeah, that's better. That's much better. So I will say we are good here. Yeah. And now I will try to improve it even better. So I will use tone equalizer first instance. Masking once again, and just to bring back a little bit of the highlights down, something like that, not too much. And then we'll use the next instance, go above, diffuse and sharpen module, and I will use now simple tone curve, also adjust mask. Let me see, yeah, that looks good, and only add the brightness to the highlights, something like that. Now that looks nice and crispy now. So let's go to the start exposure, or let's see, lens, maybe this one. Okay, after lens correction, we'll take a snapshot and see before and after. And it looks great now. As you can see, we have a lot of details on the house, and we don't have any issues on the edges, and we have quite nice details in the sky, those soft clouds, and photo looks quite nice and crunchy. Okay, let's see what can we do with the next photo. So this one I will also use for sharpening, and let me try something before we do that. I will add some okay, first denoising, maybe lens correction, then some exposure, and I will just use color balance the global chroma. That is a typical problem that a lot of photographers has with colors, especially in the highlights, or if you have some roses or something with red color, that you have oversaturated look without details, something like that. And now we will see. So I need to go to light table, duplicate that one. How can we improve that? Now we will use color balance again, but not only add chroma, and you will see great difference. Now if I'm using perceptual saturation grading, you see how I'm adding also contrast in the colors. That's quite nice option, nice function. As you can see, I can also use some illuminance in power and highlights gain, not too much. And now we are ready for sharpening, but I don't want to sharpen everything. I want to sharpen only our flower, so I will mask that. We'll go to the diffuse and sharpen module, activate it, and try to mask our flower. So let's see, we will use colors for that. Oh, we have I need to deactivate that thingy here, and let's mask our flower. I want to mask it as good as possible. Some feathering, maybe also reduce that only on the flower. %. Okay, I think it's okay. And now we will go to the 100% view so that we can see how really it looks like by sharpening. And now I will use third order speed, maybe some iterations to see what is going on. And now we have some sharpening, but we also inducing noise here, so we need to improve that. We can use fourth order speed to diffuse it a little bit so that we don't have that noise there. Maybe I can add first order speed 2 a little bit. Let's see, iterations. Oh no, that's too much. And maybe radius. Oh, that's also too much. So about somewhere about 8-9 pixel. I think it's enough. I don't need to project anything here. Maybe just a bit. 1 maybe. No, there's no big difference, so I think we can leave it there. Yeah, that's quite nice. By the way, you need to be careful if you zoom out your photo. This result here will not be identical as your exported photo. So if you want to see how exactly it looks like, you need to go to 100%, and that will be the same result after exporting. Okay. But as you can see, we have now a lot of details here. And let's see before and after. Not before and after. Let's compare it to the last one. So I will add a snapshot. Go to this one. And as you can see, that is quite a difference. Okay. The next one. Okay, with this photo I would like to demonstrate that diffusion function of Diffusion Sharpen module. And as you can see, we have one scene that is quite harsh. I will try to get it a little bit softer, enhance it a little bit, enhance also the colors. So let's get started. So we will use, as always, the noising, maybe lens correction, and I don't think we need too much exposure here, maybe a little bit, something like that. But I will now go to Filmic and remove that contrast, that high contrast there, maybe even compress the dynamic range a little bit with white relative exposure. And now I will use color balance and RGB as next module to improve the colors a bit. As always, you know what I'm using here always. Something like that. Maybe even more. So that we have that glowing green, reddish, green, yellowish mouse here. Okay. And I will also like to darken the blue. I don't want to feel too much reflections here, so I will use brightness tab here to darken the blue channel, and immediately we can see much better those details here, which are for my taste very important. And also, of course, that leaves here. And let me see, maybe just a little bit, brightness to the red channel, something like that. And now I would like to darken that upper part a little bit. So I would use a next exposure module with a mask. Mask that part that I find interesting. A little bit of feathering. Mask 100%. And now I would like to darken the rest. That means I need to toggle polarity of the mask so that we have something like that. Maybe add a little bit of feathering. And we will darken the rest now. Let's see how far should we go. Maybe something like that. Now I will add the first exposure a little bit more because we have darkened everything. Just a tiny bit. And we have so much texture here that I don't like. So much details. So we'll soften that. And I already used that method with diffuse and sharpen. I will now use one of the presets. And by the way, if you don't know how to start, you have here quite a lot of nice presets. Aurélien, the developer of the module, has made for almost every possible case. So we can choose one of them and then start to improve that by your photo. And for this case, I will use bloom option, and I will go with radius quite a bit. Add some iterations, maybe not too much, something like that. Let's see. And now I will use here multiply blend mode for adding soft contrast. But I think we need to remove a little bit of opacity, something like that, and also add exposure there. Something like that. I would like to keep it quite dark. And now I will use another instance of diffuse and sharpen. I will improve those, or I will like to remove even more of that local contrast there. So I will use now just this first and second order speed, add some iterations and also radius. And I will now use another blend mode, harmonic mean. Let's do that real quick. And it looks quite flat now, but it doesn't matter because we can now use opacity slider or central radius. Let me see. Maybe that's really enough. You see now how I can use central radius for sharpening practically, or edges, and we are diffusing everything else. That's quite nice function. And with that combination, I can have coarse or fine contrasts if I want. For example, I'm flattening now the contrast, and I'm bringing that contrast back if I'm using radius here. And with central radius, I can sharpen practically everything around the edges. As you can see, the photo looks quite smooth now. Let me see, should I improve something else here? I think it's almost done, but I would like to maybe to add a little bit more exposure here. Let me see, I don't want to go too far, and darken the rest just a tiny bit so that this area we can see but a bit better. So let's play a little bit with color balance. I think we can even improve just a tiny bit our contrast there, and I think we're done. So let's see before and after. Let's go by maybe lens correction, take a snapshot, go to the last step, and as you can see, it's quite nice and soft. That is how I like it. So we have now that some kind of odd-tone effect. It's a little bit dreamy, but I like it. I think to this scene it's very good, because we're concentrating on this area, that glowing trees in the water, and it looks quite nice. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, on this one we will also use diffuse and sharpen module for diffusing, and I would like to calm down a little bit the texture of the foliage around our woman, and I would like to brighten a little bit that area. So we can use now denoising, lens correction, exposure a little bit, something like that, and go maybe a tiny bit of our color balance RGB. I think it's enough in this case, and we'll, similar to the last photo, we'll go here with blurring the image and multiply it to get that soft contrast, but not so much. I think it's enough, something like that, as you can see. And let me see how the details are looking like. And now I will use another instance of diffuse and sharpen. This time I will mask our foliage. So let's use colors for that. Let me see. Okay, something like that. Maybe even more green. And a little bit there. Let's say something like that, but I don't want to mask the roads, so we can use also, I think it's not saturated, so we can use saturation slider and only choose area with higher saturation, something like that. Let me see. Okay, we can leave it there. So, and now diffusing with first and second order speed. Okay, a little bit of radio. Oh, that's too much. Maybe also with harmonic mean. Yeah, that's better. Let me go 100% to see even better the details. And I think we are good there. Also nice and soft. And I think I could also improve a little bit the contrast there around. So I will use next instance of color balance RGB and reuse that parametric mask by choosing the raster mask option here and raster mask from diffuse and sharpen 1. So now we are using practically that masked greens, And we can darken first those greens and add the contrast there. Something like that. So now we are concentrating much more on our main subject, our woman with the dog. And I think we're good there. We can add just a little bit more exposure. Something like that. Okay, let's see before and after. I don't know, we're going to exposure maybe. Or here by lens correction. Take a snapshot. Go to the last step. And as you can see, it's quite nice and smooth. I like that. Maybe. Let me see. I would like to sharpen a little bit. Yeah, that's nice. Okay. It's a nice improvement. Similar to the last one, it's we have now a little bit of that dreamy Orton effect look, but I like it for this spatial scene. Okay. Let's see what we can do with the next one. With this one, I would like to demonstrate one nice trick that we can use with the diffuse and sharpen module to recover the details in the highlights, which are often the problem if we have a compression of dynamic range, the loss of the details in the highlights. And I will show you how to do that in this one. So let's start with lens correction, the noise, exposure, something like that. I would like to see the details in the shadows, but now we have lost a little bit of details of the building here. So let me prove a little bit of contrasts. I don't want to have too dark shadows. Maybe compress a little bit of shadows, something like that. Our next step, as always, color balance and GP. We need to improve saturation, but also add some contrast through that. Something like that. And I would also like to darken a little bit the sky here. So let's do that also. We will use the next instance of color calibration module. Now we have a nice scene here, but I would like to improve that texture of that building because we have this nice sandstone that I would like to improve a little bit. And we will use diffuse and sharpen again, but this time I think I will like to mask only this area first. So let's use the colors, something like that, maybe even more, so that we cover everything. Let's see how far we should go. A little bit in the green, something like that. Adjust the feathering radius, excuse me, and mask contrast. And now we will use that what is in the here in the preset simulate watercolor. So we can use third and fourth order speed to diffuse for diffusion, add some iterations and also radius, but it's of course too much. So I would like to use edge sensitivity to not to lose the edges. And now you can ask, I have done completely opposite of that what I like to do, but now we can use another blend mode, and that is subtract blend mode. That multiplies subtraction, and we have darkened everything, but when we move the blend of fulcrum to the left, we are getting a nice details there on that area, as you can see. Now everything is a little bit darker, but that's not a problem, because we can use now tone equalizer, go about diffuse and sharpen, and I will use here also simple tone curve, because this is another method to add a little bit more contrast in the highlights. Adjust the mask, something like that, maybe even more. Let me see. Okay, and now we will add the brightness only on that area. Okay, I can use also raster mask from diffuse and sharpen, so that we only brighten those masked area, something like that. Let me see. Yeah, I could have even more colors there. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. You see, now we have a lot of details here. We can also improve it even better by moving that edge management thingy. Let's see, maybe only -1 or -2. Let me see. Let's play with it a little bit. Yeah, I think it's okay. We have a lot of local contrast there now. Let's see before and after. First we will see what is the last step before diffuse and sharpen, something like that. Take a snapshot. And go to the last step. You see how many details we have there. You can also recognize that on that tree. And if we are going near, we don't have any issues. We don't have any bending or something. It's quite nice. That's the first. And let's see now before and after. Lens correction. Takes a snapshot and to the last step. As you can see, it's quite impressive. It's too much. Maybe it's too much in this case, but you can recognize that better. And we will also edit a next photo with that technique, so you can say another example for that. We have now nice winter scene here, and let's see how can we improve that. Very important is to get the texture of the snow. So let's start with our lens correction and denoising and add exposure. And as you can see, if I add exposure, I'm losing the details in the snow. I could also remove a little bit of the contrast. Let's say something like that. And now, color balance, RGB as always, to improve the contrast otherwise. So you can see now it looks quite nice. But I would like to improve the texture of the snow. So first what I would like to do is to use tone equalizer to bring just that highlights there a bit more down, something like that. And now I will use diffuse and sharpen module and use this preset simulate watercolor, similar like last time, and we will use here also subtract blend mode, and I will go back with that a little bit more. And as you can see, we already have a nice details. Excuse me. Now I will use tone equalizer next instance, as always, and bring it above diffuse and sharpen, and add just a little bit more brightness on the highlights with a simple tone curve. I think the mask is already nice. Okay, and just a tiny bit. Let's see, something like that. And then we have quite a lot of details here. As you can see, we can recognize quite nice the texture of the snow, and I think I could improve also the colors here. Let me try that at the end. I think I will use now a channel mixer to separate a little bit of blue shadows from the warm sunny part highlights. So I'll use a red channel, remove a red and blue part from that, and bring it only by input red back, something like that. I think I could also give it a tiny bit of yellowish. Okay, and improve just a bit more the saturation. Wow, that looks quite nice now. Oh, I could maybe just a bit more brightness. Let me see. Yeah. So it looks nice now. Let's see before and after. So where should we start? Maybe by exposure or lens correction. I don't know, let's type or lens correction. By the noise, excuse me. Take a snapshot and go to the exposure. And you can see we have a nice glowing sunny winter scene with a lot of details in the snow. Okay. As you have seen, the diffuse and sharpen module offers a lot of possibilities to influence the photo. In this episode, I have only shown the possibilities I often use in my work, and I think this is enough to give you a small overview. You have seen how you can specifically influence the texture of the photo, how you can, for example, in landscape photography, make the local contrast, which is often too strong, softer, and how you can strengthen the details from the highlights. The diffuse and sharpen module has also other possibilities of enhancement that I didn't mention here. And as I pointed out earlier, there are a lot of presets that you can use as a basis for further enhancements. So use them and don't be afraid to experiment. The module is very new, and I can well imagine that one of two additional uses can be discovered. Please don't just wait for explanations from outside. Okay, so if you have any other questions, please ask in the comment section or go to the pixel.us. I will put that link into the description. And thank you for watching, and until the next time.